Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to In Your House. And of course, I am your director, Hollywood House. And you guys already know them vibes. When we slide on through, we here to give you that work, 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 round the clock when it comes to this professional wrestling business. And we do it so well because when we give it to you, we give it to you when you are on the road. Maybe you making towns. Maybe you on a layover. Maybe you just waiting on your match. Maybe you need to just pop us in your ears and let us give you that work when it comes to this professional wrestling business. And guys, here we are, back again, back again. It's Tuesday. And you know what that means? That means it is time for us to give you that work. And we are once again on Twitch. We are once again on YouTube. We are once again going to give you that podcast work as we have for 5 years. And you already know them vibes. I am your director, Hollywood House. And this is about to be a movie, Jack, right here at In Your House. We got a big episode planned. We got a big guest. And we already let you know who it was. We had a little Sunday general discussion. So if you guys want to go back and listen to that episode, it was a great episode. We had the entire team In Your House involved in it. But that was then. And this is now. And once again, we got a great episode planned. And I can't do this alone. I mean, I've done it. It's a big weight to carry on my shoulders, but it's a lot easier when you got friends. How many of us have them? Friends, ones you can depend on. Well, I know that I do. And that is, of course, my co-host, and that is the curator of chaos. That is Hypocrisy Jones. How's it going, brother man?
Yo, what up, House? What up? Yo, I am so excited for this episode because it's about to be freaking huge right now. I don't even want to talk about me right now, which is kind of weird. I just want to bring out our guest. Like,
all right, man.
So let's do
all
it.
Right. You want to just go ahead and jump right on out the gate? All right, man. All right. Cool. So once again, as we talked about, we had a Sunday general discussion. It was a great episode. But at the end of that episode, we announced we had a really big guest, and now that time is here. And that guest is somebody who I've known for just a few years, and have had a chance to follow their work for quite a few years. And this is somebody who I worked close with on the Pope's Point of View. You guys can check that out. But somebody who's forged a path themselves in professional wrestling, as a manager, as a columnist, everything. This is a person who's been on Busted Open Radio, a person who's been seen on GCW, Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and currently being seen with everything they're doing on screen and behind the scenes at NWA. That is the manager of champions, the sensational Pollo Del Mar. Welcome to In Your House.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me. Man, it's like I feel a little rough over here. It's early morning on the West Coast.
Yeah.
My voice is kind of still shot. I had a show on Saturday, and everything I do sort of like puts some stress on that voice. But I'm glad to be here talking to pro wrestling with y'all.
We appreciate it. We do appreciate your time. And everything that you do, you talk about, you just had a show on Saturday, and I believe that because all the things that you do, all the stuff that you're known for as far as professional wrestling, NWA, PWI columnist, appearances on Busted Open Radio, as I've talked about. You are really out here and really making waves as far as what you're doing in the professional wrestling business. What has this journey been like for you? I guess this is coming from me. What has this journey been like for you as far as everything that you've done in the business and everything that you have coming through the pipeline?
Well, for me, it is a dream come true. It's something that I wanted to do for a very long time. I wanted it to be my profession for a long time. And I think that there were a lot of reasons why it didn't become my livelihood sooner. Partially, I think a big part of that was that I just didn't understand the business of the business. And now at this point I do. I say, like, I had a show on Saturday. Well, that shows and spending time in front of audiences is only a really small fraction of the things that I do to kind of live the dream in pro wrestling. There's a lot of things behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that I'm doing in terms of to prepare myself for those shows, to get those shows, to get that attention. And that to me is how I spend most of my time, but really it is that dream come true, that childhood dream. There's something when I was 13 years old and sitting in my family living room, watching wrestling on TV, pretending to be a journalist, pretending that I was eventually going to be a manager in the world of wrestling, and making all of those things come to fruition and make them happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So all these things are happening for you as far as what you've done in the professional wrestling business. You talk about the things that you've done backstage, which is very important. I mean, we talk about that a lot on this show. Is we love what we see from bell to bell between the ropes, but us personally, we're admirers of what's happening behind the scenes, the storytelling, the matchmaking process and whatnot, things of that nature. That's why I got as close to it as I did. I guess when you're constantly thinking, constantly trying to make that next play, constantly trying to make that next move in professional wrestling, I guess my question for you is this: with all the things that you've done in professional wrestling, and honestly, and really, it feels like a short amount of time, do you ever have those moments where you're able to stop and be like, wow, I am really doing this. This is really happening. Like those moments where you just can exhale for even just a second.
I think that for me, there's two different ways that I look at that. One is, are there moments of reflection, and are there moments of appreciation and gratitude for what's happening for me? Absolutely. Of course there are. But I don't necessarily ever think that I have that Whitney Houston moment where I'm waiting to exhale. I don't stop. I do not stop to do it. It's like something that, how you mentioned, like for the listeners, they might be listening in the car while they're making towns, or working around the house or doing whatever. They can listen to this show and sort of fill that gap of time with something that's going to be mentally stimulating to them. That's how I do it, because I'm always working, I'm always moving forward. I am legitimately a workaholic. And for me, a lot of the moments of reflection are just in the moments in between going from point A to point B. So, that to me is something I will tell you, if you're looking specifically for a story about that moment of like, wow, this is incredible, or I can't believe I'm doing this. The most prominent one that comes to mind, I just mentioned how when I was a child, was sitting in my family's home and pretending to be a journalist, pretending to be a manager. Well, when I and I wrote about this in the NWA magazine online, but when I was 13 years old, it was around just after Christmas time, not too long after Christmas time, maybe like, well, I guess it must have been spring, because we were heading into that year's Crockett Cup, and this is a very long time ago. And my family had got me a word processor, and I was in my living room transcribing interviews that were happening on television for my own imaginary professional wrestling magazine, basically. And I thought to myself at that time, like, my dream was to work for presumably Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That was and remains the single most credible, prominent pro wrestling magazine in existence.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be writing for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and I wanted to be covering the National Wrestling Alliance Crockett Cup, which was my all-time favorite wrestling event. Sorry for anybody who loves you've got it on your WrestleMania shirt. Sorry about it, but like, Crockett Cup for me was always the pinnacle of it, because I've loved tag team wrestling since a very young age.
Oh yeah.
So here I am, young person in my family living room, dreaming of being a journalist, dreaming of covering the Crockett Cup, or maybe working at the Crockett Cup as a manager for NWA. And earlier this year, the National Wrestling Alliance went to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where we held the 2023 NWA Crockett Cup.
Yes.
And I was there managing on that show.
Wonderful.
As a journalist for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, as the editor-in-chief of the National Wrestling Alliance NWA official wrestling magazine online. And there was definitely multiple moments of reflection that it took a very long time for that dream to come true, but quite legitimately, everything I wanted to do was culminated in that moment.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that,
I
Pollo.
man, that just got me smiling big just because I'm like, I can only imagine that moment, like such a big moment. Hype, what you got? What you thinking, man?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I love that, and I love how much of a hustler that Pollo is, and you can tell that,
Yes.
and you can tell that in the grind and everything thing that you're doing. And I know we appreciate that because we're much like that. You know, we're
Yeah.
doing what we can to build our page, to build our podcast, to build our brands and things like that, and to also um travel the waters of the manager scene in the wrestling industry, which is kind of weird sometimes, right? But um, I love that your moment was the Crockett Cup, because I. I seem to be finding these moments every time I do something. Every time I meet somebody new, I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Because in my journey, all I wanted to do was just be around wrestling people and feel that environment and be something, be a handy tool in the environment to help in some way, right? I don't want to be a wrestler or anything like that, but I do want to be a tool that can be utilized. And I think I see a lot of that with you and the things that you do as well. I don't really have a question. I just want to praise you. So
Well, I do think that one of the things that makes that moment that I just described important, but more importantly, one of the things I think that made that moment possible is that I had, you know, even at a very young age, sat and defined certain things I wanted to accomplish. And if people don't have, it's great to have like a generalized dream. I want to work in the wrestling industry, or I want to be a manager, or I want to be a commentator for a pro wrestling company. Those are awesome. They're going to help guide you. But if you have, I believe in sort of visualizing or like envisioning very specific things that I want to accomplish. And that what that allows for is building a roadmap to reach that location. If I just say like, I want to travel, well,
very
that's
blanket.
pretty like nebulous, right? But if I want to travel to XYZ location, that allows me to plan for that. Same thing with my career. Like I set aside things I very specifically want to do, and that allows me to figure out how to achieve that.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's really interesting as far as your thought process, which is really what we wanted to like really pick there. You said you were a workaholic. I can so relate to that, and like with you, it shows because I always feel like you are really talented at keeping yourself relevant, and not just because of the character that you play, but also because of the things that you do. I mean, all the things that you've done as far as PWI. You were doing you were doing those spaces on Twitter, now known as X, with Gabe Sapowski. You were a big part of that, and now it seems more and more that, to me, at least from my vantage point, that your influence is rising, and it's because of your ability to always keep yourself relevant, keep yourself in the conversation, whether it be the character that you play or an opinion that you might have. And how have you been able to navigate between? That's a question I definitely want to know. How have you been able to navigate between playing the character that you play and also being the critic of professional wrestling that you are?
I'm not sure that I do navigate between the two. I think that that's left up to audiences. And when it comes to social media, when I want to play the character, that specific character in NWA has a, a vocabulary of their own, her own, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yes.
And there's a way that I write that sort of gives immediately that idea that this is that character speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and versus myself, who there's a person under the character, and I went to some friends in the industry, and talked to them about how they did this. People like Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green's a friend of mine. Congratulations, Chelsea, on all the amazing things you're doing in WWE now. But I
Chelsea
talked to her,
Green.
I talked to her and I was like, you know, how did you distinguish between the two and what did you do? And her response was, I think that it would have been a real disservice to my social media if I was constantly the hot mess, if I was like writing drunk texts,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
On tweets and what.
And she's like, and it would have been really limiting to me because I want to be able to interact with people as a real person behind a character.
Yeah,
And while there's certain people who are like, this is breaking kayfabe or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
That, you know, that concept came about in an era where none of this existed. All you had to do is like play that character anytime somebody from the outside world bumped into you somewhere in public. And there were things that were really important to maintain, but we've now gone beyond that. So for me, like, I leave it up to the audiences to determine whether or not I am a success in terms of balancing between the two. But like I said, it helps that I have a defined character. And whether I'm talking as myself, the indie version of Pollo Del Mar, or the NWA version of Pollo Del Mar, you can usually tell that by the tone and vocabulary of like my tweet, for example, or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So we have some comments here in the chat. I want to go ahead and acknowledge the chat a little bit. This one right here is from Joshua Joseph, The Voice. What has been your favorite story to write from your career? Also, thank you for your mind in the business. You truly are a gem and someone to learn from.
Well, first of all, Joshua, thank you for that. I will say that I think that my mind for the business is really where I'm going to end up ultimately. There's only so much life that I can continue to breathe into a specific character like this. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination hoping or wanting to go somewhere,
Yeah,
meaning that character to disappear. But I think that my creativity is like sort of the key to that. Can you repeat the core question again?
what has been your favorite story to write from your career?
Um, I think that my favorite story to write that I've ever written about myself, actually, um, was when I was a columnist. I used to write for the Huffington Post. I wrote for them for 7 years,
Oh,
and
okay.
writing for the Huffington Post is what allowed me to jump back into doing wrestling journalism. So my
Yeah,
my my specialty for HuffPost was celebrity interviews. So I would interview mainstream stars, like Nicolas Cage, Lady Gaga, Kelly Clarkson, Katy
yeah,
Perry,
yeah,
things like that. So, and then I started covering professional wrestling because pro wrestlers are celebrities to their fans as much as anybody else is.
yep,
So at one point, that is what led to my returning into the world of professional wrestling. And I wrote this article where I examined my experiences in pro wrestling early on. And it was the title of the article was how I wrestled internalized homophobia to live my pro wrestling dreams. And
yeah,
what I meant by that, and this is a much more relatable story than, you don't have to be LGBTQ to understand this.
mm-hmm.
What it talked about is how I had bought into society's perception of me and society's definition of how far I could go in the world. And this is the reason I say it's universal, is that you can apply it to your race, you could apply it to your weight, you could apply it to where you come from, like
Yeah,
where you've lived in the past and where you come from and what your family was like. It could be anything, whether it's your height, like we look at things, a million things. And
yeah,
I talk about how I had accepted society's view of me and
yeah,
allowed that to limit for a very long time how much and how actively I would pursue this childhood dream of working in the world of professional wrestling. And to actually succeed in the world of professional wrestling, I had to discard all of that previous type of what is the word I'm looking for? I had to discard all of the defining traits that people
yeah,
had said for me would be
Yeah.
limiting. I didn't I had to recognize that who I am only limits me if it prevents me from trying. You
Yeah.
know, first before somebody else can tell you no, you have to try. And
Yep.
then if the world starts to tell you no, that could be problematic. But largely, I experienced preventing myself from ever even trying because I was afraid of what the response would be. And
Yeah.
that fear kept me out of the world of wrestling for far, far too long. And once I was able to put that aside, now I go full throttle in the world of wrestling. And if people tell me no, that's fantastic. I'm going to keep asking another person until somebody does tell me yes.
Yeah.
And at this juncture, I get a lot more yeses than nos.
Sure. Sure. No, that makes absolute sense. I mean, it speaks to your drive, your passion for it, your will to just keep working. I can definitely appreciate and respect that mindset. Hype, you got anything else for the sensational
Yo,
Pollo
I
that
want
Delmar?
everybody to see my beautiful NWA
I love that. I
pride
love that
shirt.
shirt. That the NWA
It's a
Pride shirt
yeah,
is
that is
great.
great. That
I
Um,
is
think
great. That's cold.
I think they almost made it for me and Max. Like I think because we're the two.
Yeah.
So actually we're not the only two, by the way, but we're the two that are the most
Yeah.
visible.
right, right.
Right.
We're
Yeah,
not the only two.
I love Max, by the way. I mean, Max is great. Hype, what you got?
Yo, I know. I just love that inspiration.
Yeah,
That is so powerful. And you, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're gay, if you're black, if you're obese, if you're
none of that.
have any sort of like, you know, hold back on anything. It kind of starts with yourself. I know myself personally. I got into a lot of the stuff that I got into later in life because I was telling myself I couldn't do that. I was dumb. I needed to do
Mm-hmm.
this. I needed to do that. And
Yeah,
like
yep.
now I'm at this life or at this point where all these things are coming. Look, I'm talking to Pollo Delmar and I am geeked. And like
Right. Right.
these things have come because, you know, I didn't quit. I stopped quitting. I'm sorry, and I stopped saying that I can't do that. I just did.
Yeah.
You know, Nike that shit.
Absolutely. You just do it, man. You just got to do it, man. So you showed us a little bit of your NWA apparel there. Wonderful NWA apparel there that you could get. I want to talk about some of your work at NWA. That's been
Sure.
really interesting to me to kind of follow what I can follow. Of course, you were you were managing the Thrill Billy, Silas Mason, and everything that's come with that, all the success that you had with that. You've had a chance to do the Crockett Cup, do all these events. I know recently you were just at NWA 75, so that's another great one. You also have the magazine there, the NWA online magazine. Could you talk to the household a little bit about all your work, including the work that you got moving with the magazine?
Absolutely. You know, I'm very lucky because I actually at NWA 75, that was my 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
Like bookended event, my 2-year anniversary with NWA. I entered NWA for NWA 73 and Empower. That was my very first show with them.
Yeah.
And then I
Yes.
was at 74 and then now at 75. So, and there's been such a progression. I will let people know that we film our seasons kind of we film TV seasons. That's what we call our, you know,
Yeah.
between our tapings. So for season 15, I'm in a much more limited capacity, excuse me, on screen, which makes sense because my primary storyline has ended. So I'm back in that place that we hear about a lot, like waiting for to see what creative comes up with.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. For sure.
luckily, I plan to be my own creative, so we'll see what I come up with.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been such a gift, really, because as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, I think that for me, creativity and the ways that I can influence the business sort of off screen are equally important and could be longer, like a longer term place for me to find myself than
Yeah.
on screen. So, you know, on screen characters have a shelf life, but the creativity or the knowledge or the
Yes.
work ethic
Yes.
that goes into that does not have a shelf life. That can exist forever behind the scenes. So with NWA, I've had some incredible opportunities. I helped to produced 2 episodes of the 10 Pounds of Gold series some time ago. I was
Awesome.
working in a production capacity with our social media team at NWA 75. Again, working in some production capacities at the subsequent television tapings. So there's a lot of things that are happening there. It's very exciting for me. I have not yet found a single like facet of the industry of professional wrestling that doesn't excite me in some level. I
Yeah.
love being in that environment. So just being there makes me like, feel like that fat kid in a candy store again.
I
So
hear you.
and then with the magazine, that is a passion project. That's something that I've loved, that element of professional wrestling for years. The magazines that we were inundated with in the 80s and into the 90s have died off significantly. We only have a few around the world left, pro wrestling magazines. And so I went to my boss, Billy Corgan, and I was like, look, this is something that I really think that I can contribute by doing. Like, we get to tell fun stories, we get to showcase our talents in ways that other magazines or publications might not. We get to put out on Google information that's puts a positive light on us and our talent. And more importantly, it provides like this really fun throwback feel where people can sit and watch. If you are of the age where you used to love those wrestling magazines, you can download the PDF version of NWA Official Wrestling Magazine and look at it just like it's a wrestling magazine right in front of you. Or
Yeah.
if you are more traditional and like of this generation, you can click on one of the links on our website and read it and share it with your friends. And we try to give people something that is special. We are special. We are, modern wrestling with a throwback feel. The
Yeah.
magazine is modern wrestling with a throwback feel. I think it goes very well in kind of helping to brand us. And it's important to note that we are talking on Tuesday, and Tuesday is NWA Day on Pollo Del Mar's socials. And
Yes.
Tuesday is NWA Day on Pollo Del Mar's Twitch channel. And Tuesday is, in fact, NWA Day, when a brand new episode of NWA Power debuts at 6:05 Eastern time on YouTube. And it's so easy to find us anywhere in the world, youtube.com/NWA.
Absolutely. So it's that day, y'all. Go ahead and check out some NWA Power. So I know that NW, and I'm gonna let you go here in a second, Hype, but I gotta follow up here. I know that NWA has entered this new era. You guys we're seeing some new
Oh, yeah.
presentations, some new things getting filtered in. It seems to be very exciting. What can you, Pollo, tell us about this new era without folding the curtain back too much? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. First of all, we have entered a new era. Like NWA 75, a lot of people viewed that almost as a hard restart of, like when you reboot your computer, like,
Yes.
a lot of people viewed our NWA 75 two-day pay-per-view as something of a hard reboot for us. A lot of things that people had become familiar with over the course of the last year changed. We had 8 new champions crowned. There was
Yes.
only
Yeah.
one person who escaped NWA 75 with the title intact. And that we don't know how, that was our television champion, Thomas Latimer. And
Yeah.
how Tom decides to hold on to that belt before cashing it in for his opportunity at EC3, we don't know. But I would say that October 28th, when NWA Samhain goes to Cleveland, Ohio, it's
Yes.
probably a strong likelihood that that pay-per-view main event is going to be Tom Latimer facing EC3 for the World Heavyweight title. But so there's all of that, like
Yeah.
everything that people have been comfortable with changed.
Yeah.
Everything that people have been uncomfortable with changed.
Yep.
Everything that people bitched and moaned incessantly about has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, for all those reasons, a wonderful time to revisit the National Wrestling Alliance as a broadcast product. But most importantly, some really fun changes came production wise. We've got a new,
Okay.
smoother look on the program. It's a lot glossier. It looks a lot glossier. The sound quality is better. The visuals are better. And from what I can tell people without spoiling anything is that the improvements that we're already seeing to the program, I think, are astronomically better. But I know for a fact, because Billy Corgan himself has told me outright, we're only about a third of the way through the number of those physical changes. So visually, this product is going to change very quickly. And I don't know when we're going to be implementing the next round of changes, but
Yeah.
it's exciting because things are on the move.
That's very cool. That's very cool to hear that there's so many things that's still moving, still trying to freshen things up there at the NWA, which is a great feel because I am in the mindset, and I've always said this, is that wrestling is great when the NWA is great. So I truly feel that way, and I truly feel like what you guys got coming down the pipeline could be very exciting. Guys, check that out on their YouTube channel, 605 on Tuesdays. Hype, where you at, man?
Yo, I am right here. I'm right here, Hollywood, right here. Yo, so Pollo, wanted to know who were some of your early or like inspirations, in wrestling, in
Great question.
journalism, in anything
Great
that you
question.
have. Full disclosure, I kind of stole this question from the voice in the chat, so appreciate you,
Okay,
voice.
but it's still a good question. Still a
Yeah.
good question.
So my early influences in the world of professional wrestling are quite varied. You know, the first person I think that really made me fall in love with the idea of becoming a manager in the world of professional wrestling, hands down, was Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express. My all-time favorite tag team, my all-time favorite manager, Cornette and the Midnight Express, which is one of the reasons why when these people like these bizarre internet critics of me say things like, oh, they'll tweet to me, oh, what would Cornette have to say about this? And I'm just like, please, by all means, tag Jim Cornette in any, because you, in your mind, want to tattle on me.
Yeah.
My mind just want Jim Cornette's attention.
Yeah.
So
I understand.
and
this.
the fact that, by the way, the fact that his wife Stacy DMs me back and forth, the fact that Dennis Condrey is now my friend, and I know that he talks to Jim Cornette on a regular basis. Jim Cornette at this point is extremely aware of me. If he hated me as much as they think that he would, I'm guessing he'd probably said something by now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's also just like, I tell people, like, tell him, because he's the reason I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
You know, the reason that I do this. So definitely him as an influence. And of course, you know, when I say he's my all-time favorite, it doesn't discredit the other incredible managers of his generation,
Yeah.
the Bobby the Brain Heenans, JJ Dillon's, Jimmy Hart. All of those people were so influential to me. But more specifically, given the way I do my management, like the way I present, people like Baby Doll, Missy Hyatt, Dark Journey, I cannot continue to say their names enough, but these are people who are considered valets because women in the 80s did not get to be a manager. They were a valet. The first woman who was acknowledged as a manager was Miss Elizabeth. And that's like the factual history of professional wrestling. The first woman to be acknowledged as a manager other than a valet when paired with a man was Miss Elizabeth. And so people like Sherry Martel, Luna Vachon, huge influences on my career, partially because of how they morphed their persona and character to be aligned with whoever they were managing at the time. I love that. I absolutely intend to do that. You can see how that happened when I went to NWA. There was no reason for me, for example, to change from the character that people got to know and love on the indie circuit when I got paired up with the Thrillbilly Silas Mason, other than the fact that in my mind, that's what my character would do. Like, just like Sherry Martel became Sister Sherry, or was, you know, Heartbreak Kid Sherry Martel, Scary Queen Sherry, you know. And so those people, very big influences on me as well.
Love that.
I like that. I really like that.
Lists, anybody who wrote for Bill Apter magazine, Bill Apter himself, Stu Sachs, the publisher, all of the greats from the 80s, Eddie Elner was my favorite columnist in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That is because Eddie Elner wrote from the heel perspective, and that was my favorite. And it should be noted that Eddie Elner throughout the 80s, Liz Hunter into the 90s, I'm sorry, Brady Mankiewicz, all these people, they sort of continued that. And I will tell you that I'm extremely pleased that I now have the column space that used to belong to Eddie Elner to keep
Wow.
that concept alive. I got to follow in one of my idols' footsteps in regards to journalism as well.
Very cool.
Love that.
I'm overwhelmed.
Very cool.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Very cool. That's yeah.
I
Go
feel
ahead,
like
bro.
a lot of your life has been kind of like full circle. Like you've experienced
Charmed. I live a very charmed life.
charmed.
I tell my mom on a regular basis, like I send my mom text messages, and I call her obviously on a regular basis. And I'm always like, oh my God, Mom, I'm getting to work with this person that you may remember I had posters of like as
Yeah.
a child. Oh my God, Mom, like I'm getting to do this event that you may remember I always wanted to do, or all
Yeah.
of these things. And my mom says, like, always, like, there's always something exciting happening for you. There's always something. And I said to her, and I continue to say it, and I'm only half joking when I say this, I am magic. Like I possess magic in my
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah.
There's something magical about me. And I think that I don't think it's special to me. What I think is magical about it is that I put so much positivity and passion and love towards things, and that
Mhm.
goes out into the universe and it pulls those things towards me.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's yeah, I do.
I
I
love
do. I
that.
really truly love that.
I hope you manifest everything that you want. Everything that you
Big facts. Big facts. Big facts.
I tell people, like, you cannot. So there's a saying in my favorite book, which is The Alchemist, and there's a piece in it there that says, when you want something badly enough, the whole universe will conspire to help you achieve it. And I believe that. Like I
Yeah.
say on my social media streams, like, if you come in and you give me love, I will give you love back. I'm giving out love to begin with, so hopefully it will attract love back to me.
Yes.
But if you come in and you're hateful to me, I'm going to give that back to you too. So it's like,
Matching energy.
Oh yeah, big match energy, yo.
yeah, that's the thing though. Like, when you put what you put into the universe, it will give back to you. So if you're putting in fear, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, you're going to get things that seem to confirm that those fears are required. If you put in love and you put in hard work and you put in passion for something,
Yes.
those things draw people to you. It's literally the moth to the flame.
That's cool. I like what I'm liking here, Hype, is like I'm kind of digging into like the spirituality of Pollo Del Mar here. So I think that's pretty cool. To be honest, I love to have those types of conversations. So this is a good one. But we got a lot to talk about, still a whole lot to cover. And the questions just continue here. And this one right here was actually this one's from my wife. She wanted to ask because I was trying to pitch questions. We all know that when that you are, you do drag, and you also are a pro wrestling manager. How did you bring those two together? How did you have your drag act combined with this pro wrestling manager to make this one sensational super character?
Well, I had started in the world of professional wrestling a very long time ago. I'm embarrassed to tell how long ago it was, but I'm going to. It's a interesting fact. I first dabbled in the world of professional wrestling like as a professional. I was a manager 31 years ago. 30 ago in Cleveland, Ohio. And then I, like 28 years ago, 27 years ago, something like that, I was doing color commentary on a public access wrestling show in Cleveland.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I put that aside because I was really uncomfortable with myself at the time. I felt uncomfortable with my own sexuality. I felt uncomfortable in that environment. I felt like it was required of me to portray something that I wasn't.
Yeah.
I put it aside, and then life progressed, and 20 years ago almost, I started doing drag. And the drag was an element to me. It's very similar in a lot of ways to wrestling. It's a character I portray.
Yeah.
You know, it's as real as you want it to be, or it's not as real as you want it to be. And the same time, I was working as a journalist. I was writing for all these publications, and it just, all of that started to merge. It's like when you put things in a freaking casserole and all of a sudden they just start to
Yeah. And it's,
into one
yeah.
thing. And honestly, it became more beneficial to me that my writing career and my drag career became one thing, because it was like marketing and branding for that character while doing what I was doing. And then
Yeah.
through writing, I got back into the wrestling. And by that point in time, I had a very unique persona
Yeah.
that fell into the world of professional wrestling. You know, like pro wrestling is stemming from the circus, right? It stems from the
Yep.
circus.
Yep.
So I just thought, wow, the most challenging part for many people of entering the world of professional wrestling is what will make me unique, what will make me stand out, and
Yes.
had it ready made. And so it just, I think that's what helped me, like that, and my intense drive is what helped me
Yeah.
steamroll forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hype, how you feeling over there, man?
Yo, I'm feeling inspired in this interview today, man. Just absolutely inspired. Like
Yes,
we're
man.
getting all sorts of just knowledge dropped on us by literally the manager of champions. Y- I I don't know how anyone that doesn't listen to this can't come out inspired, because it's really is about all about drive and all about pushing yourself and not telling yourself
Yes.
no, and making all of these pieces of your casserole or whatever come together to hopefully taste good, right?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I love it. I love the energy, and I'm loving everything that we're hearing here, guys. We have Pollo Del Mar, the sensational Pollo Del Mar manager of champions here on In Your House. You guys are going to be listening to this on Tuesday, and you guys already know when you do, it's going to be a movie. And speaking of some great movies, great things coming down the pipeline, I definitely wanted to talk about this with you, Pollo. This coming weekend is going to be Pope's Point of View's 200th episode, and you have been the co-host for this show for quite a long time. I've been the producer of the show since the beginning, and now we're here at 200 episodes this coming Saturday. You've been very you've had a heavy influence on the show. Everything that you've brought to it, your takes, your opinions, your thoughtfulness, your character, it keeps it entertaining. So like we got 200 coming up. It's really exciting. Got some big things working on it. What are your thoughts, and how are you feeling as we approach the 200th episode of our mutual friend Pope's Point of View?
Well, I'm excited. You know, first of all, I only take as much credit for that as you know, just showing up every week to be with him. And
Yeah, sure.
it was a very unexpected pairing when he asked, "Hey, I think that we would make a really good podcast co-host. You would make a good podcast." But we've had such a fun time. Like there's
Yeah,
bickering, there's a lot of arguing, there's a lot of laughing.
yeah.
Uh, and I hope that people do tune in. But you know, Pope done booted me for episode 200 because he's got Alicia Fox on the full. So I've been booted off for that episode, but I'm not mad. By the way, I think it's episodes 200 and 201 I've been booted off because Alicia Fox had a lot to say. So
It
I
was
get
a
2 weeks
heavy
off.
episode.
It's 2 weeks off. That's fine with me because Elijah Burke, I love that man, but he works my nerves to no end.
Pope. We all love him, man. Guys, it's going to be very, very exciting. That's the 200th episode of Pope's Point of View. That is Saturday, 9:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on all major podcasting platforms and also on his YouTube, Pope TV. So go ahead and check that out, his big interview with Alicia Fox. It is going to be great, and you guys should definitely check that out. But one thing I do know about you, Pollo, is that while you're having this incredible journey here in professional wrestling, you possess a trait that not a lot of people that are grinding as hard as you do in the professional wrestling business does. You still manage to kind of keep up with and even actively critique from time to time things that are going on currently in mainstream professional wrestling. So I wanted to play a little game with you, Pollo, and I'm very excited for this one because it gives me opportunity to pick your brain. And that's a game called That's True, That Might Be True, and That's Ridiculous. And basically, the premise of the game here is that we will give you, our guest here, Pollo Del Mar, a statement, and from that statement, you have to tell us if that statement is true, it might be true, or if it's ridiculous, and just give us a brief little synopsis as to why. Is that something you'd be interested in doing, Pollo?
Let's go.
All right. So with the situation here, we're going to swing over to the WWE side of things here. With the situation with Matt Riddle and his recent troubles and things going on with him that you may or may not have heard about, I pose to you this statement. Riddle will be in the WWE by the end of this year. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think that's true.
Okay.
I don't think that the situation that they're having right now is gonna get him released, if that's what you're sort of implying. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that he is somebody who I don't know what he's going through, but I don't think they're gonna release him over that. He's very popular.
He is. We were just talking about that on another episode of In Your House. Hype.
I think it's definitely not true. Like he'll still be in WWE, and hopefully he gets whatever help he may or may not need, you know, and his everything gets good, man.
Gotcha. Hopefully, man. Hopefully. So on to the next one here that I want to ask you. With everything going on the AEW side of things, we just saw Swerve Strickland have a confrontation with Adam Page, and Lightweight kind of eviscerate him there on the mic a little bit in a lot of different ways with a lot of different things that were said, if you check that out. So I pose this statement to you, Pollo. Swerve Strickland will be the first Black AEW World Heavyweight Champion. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
That might be true. I mean, I certainly think that there's I think he has the skill set for that. The reason that I can't, I would never say it's ridiculous. But it's certainly not out of the question. But AEW's booking techniques tend to lean towards very specific people that I think that Tony Khan really loves, and or people who are going to have that sort of international flair to it. I certainly think that he's going to hold some gold in AEW again, but I don't know for a fact that it would be that particular title.
Gotcha. Hype.
I definitely think he should, especially with the run that he has going on right now. But that is hard to say. But he would be one of the front runners, because basically he's one of the most prominent Black characters that I can think of in AEW right now, besides like the Acclaimed and things like that.
Right.
So yeah,
I would Ricky Starks ahead of him in terms
of.
Oh
yeah, also Ricky Starks. Yeah.
Oh yes, Ricky Starks. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Can't with Ricky Starks, everything he's got going on Collision and everything, match he just had with Danielson and everything. I think that his trajectory is kind of moving in the right direction. So absolutely, Ricky Starks is a good thought. But we'll move right on to my next statement here. So Pollo, of course, I know that you and Pope have had a very in-depth conversations as far as the firing of one CM Punk. So of course everybody's knows what's going on as far as him. He's been fired from the company. With there being little tiny whispers, you can only take things for a grain of salt when it comes to the dirt sheets and whatnot. There's word that CM Punk could possibly go back to WWE. So CM Punk will sign with the WWE. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that the track record that he has with WWE is going to justify that. I also don't think that I don't think that they are as interested in Punk returning at this stage of the game with everything that he's displayed so far. They're much more interested in somebody like a Cody Rhodes who's much younger, or the Young Bucks who are much younger and still cachet. But most importantly, I don't think Punk would agree to it, because I don't believe WWE would offer him all of those sort of like personal veto powers.
Yeah.
I think it's a very two-way street here, and I do not think that Punk would agree to something that would require him to just be a worker among workers.
Yeah.
That's what he would have to be.
Yeah, and that's to me that's ridiculous as well. Hype cut on the same thought process.
Oh yeah, it's definitely ridiculous. I loved when CM Punk came back. I was super excited for it. I feel like most of the wrestling fan base, but that kind of soured, quickly and due to certain things. We're at two failed attempts at a comeback, and I don't know why WWE would invest in that, and I don't know why many other companies would invest in it at this point either, because it seems like more of a headache than it would be a beneficial ROI. So
yeah, the situation here I think would be specifically, when you say specifically other companies, would another company see that he would be an investment that would have that ROI, or would it bring eyes to your product for all the wrong reasons, which is what we saw with AEW,
right,
because people going up, if like at best, just to watch things fall apart. And I think that the whatever you would benefit you would get from having Punk would end up returning to wherever it was, because people are just waiting for the other shoe to fall.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
No, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. All right, on to the next statement here. Cody Rhodes. We're seeing Cody Rhodes really come into prominence this past year. He just had a match against Roman Reigns at this past year's WrestleMania. Of course, this is on the cusp of the year before him coming over as a EVP of AEW, getting out of that situation that he was in and coming over and rising to prominence as now what appears to be a top guy with the WWE. So I guess my statement is this: somewhere down the line, will Cody Rhodes go back to AEW? That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
That might be true. I don't think it's going to be during his in-ring career. I suspect that WWE is going to lock him into something very long term. I think it would be probably more likely that we would see Dustin Rhodes go back to WWE, join his brother for one last hurrah, go into the WWE Hall of Fame, and just stay there.
Gotcha. I'm in a thought process of you never say never in wrestling. So, I say that might be true. Hype. Where you at, man?
I'm gonna call ridiculous on this one, just because I don't think
ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna go back now. Like with the notoriety that he has gained in WWE, and eventually he will complete the story. We all know that's going to happen. He's going to get that big belt. He probably will have some sort of interaction or reunion with his brother somewhere down the line in that, whether it be for Hall of Fame induction or what you have. WWE will use that in some way. So I think they got their horns or their claws locked back in on Cody, and I don't think they're gonna let him go this time. So
Gotcha. So that we're gonna stay with Cody here on the next statement. Of course, for the recent shows, we've known that back at Payback during the Grayson Waller effect, it was Cody who made the announcement that main event Jey Uso would be coming to Monday Night Raw. We would later find out that there was some trade compensation that was involved in the bringing of Jey Uso to Monday Night Raw. So my statement is this for you, Pollo. Cody will finish the story at WrestleMania 40. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think that it's probable. I think that it's very possible. I don't. So I mean, I guess that would be. I certainly don't think it's ridiculous. I'm not necessarily willing to say that it's true. So
yeah,
that's that it might be true. This is a situation where I think that they would be the Cody's finishing the story like is one thing. I think that they should I personally think they should pull the trigger on Jey Uso at this juncture more than I think that they should pull the trigger on Cody in terms of Roman Reigns.
Yeah, and storyline wise, I see why you would say that, just because of everything that Jay's been through, and of course the what he's turned into as far as an individual star. I mean, over these last 3 years, he's really built himself to be a viable top baby face that we're kind of seeing, and we're seeing a refreshing version of him on Monday Night Raw without the bloodline. Hype, where are you at with Cody finishing the story?
Roman Reigns forever, bro. Roman Reigns forever. Never finished that story, bro.
It's like, no.
no, I'm just playing. Although like part of me says like WWE is going to keep those belts on Roman as long as possible. Like I think in the back of Vince's mind somewhere, he was like, man, I really want to break Bruno's record, and he really pushed this, and we're almost like halfway. We're almost like halfway there, right? So like, what's like 3 more years?
3 years though of
I know. What's 3 more years?
I don't think that that's a record that they can possibly break.
No,
there's no have. We might get to more years, like longer than Hogan for sure.
Yeah,
that's the one I want. That's the one I care about. Just beat him.
I don't even think they're going to get as long as Backlund. Backlund held it for 6 years.
Man.
And the interesting part about this too is if WWE didn't rewrite their own history over and over again, that wouldn't be true, because Backlund the belt in the middle of that and then was given it back. So if they separated it into 2 reigns, but then have to like reorganize a whole bunch of things. But that's the problem that WWE has backed itself into.
That's true.
Absolutely.
I can't really say anything against that there, because it's true. So another thing that we've seen to be true is went down today, and that has been the completion of the sale of WWE between the merger between themselves and UFC for this TKO group. We've seen some pictures of it. It looks like Bianca Belair and Montez Ford were chosen to go and do the media appearances and whatnot for this big event. So that's great to see. Triple H and Vince was there. So I guess now that this merger is official, I guess I want to ask it or pose a statement here to your Pollo. A top UFC fighter will have a moment at WrestleMania 40. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think it's absolutely true at this point. They're going to start cross promoting now that they're the same. That is, I think that it's it's inevitable.
Yeah.
1,000%. Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%, bro. Like, and if they don't, then what was the point in doing this?
Yeah, I think that's what's coming. I do agree with that. It's that we'll see that this coming to WrestleMania. As far as somebody that we might not see past this next year, I want to talk a little bit about Bryan Danielson, who has made it clear that his time is coming, as far as his in-ring career, that is. And this is the buzz that I've been hearing and whatnot, that he wants to be home with his daughter. His daughter turned 7 years old, so now he wants to spend more time with his family and not wrestle in ring. I guess my statement is this: we see it a lot. Wrestlers leave. wrestlers come back, Bryan Danielson will return to the ring after a few years of being off. That's true. That might be true. That's ridiculous.
Um, like I think it's ridiculous to think that he plans to leave full time.
Yeah.
I think that he's gonna go on to a schedule that would allow him to come back for pay-per-view events. I think he's gonna be going on to that downgraded schedule. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, if he had a Roman Reigns schedule, it would, he could be home for 2 weeks at a time with his daughter and his wife,
Yeah.
and then come back and do things. I do not see him leaving the ring entirely for any period of time for quite a while. He fought too hard to be able to get back in the ring, to just sort of like give it up at this point, when there's still a lot of things that he can do in terms of accomplishments,
Yeah.
championships, other things like that in AEW.
Gotcha. Hype.
Yo, yeah, I don't think there's any way that he just leaves wrestling in any capacity, whether he's backstage or something, doing something. That man is going to be doing something. Like, and
Minimum, he's going to be running a wrestling school at some point in time. By the way,
that,
I mean, like,
yeah, even that.
That needs to happen. Yeah, that'd be great.
most claimed exports from the Bay Area. He got a lot of his early success in the Bay Area, working for AEW and things like that. Big time wrestling out here. So he will have a wrestling school. It's going to be like a Boris Malenko school. I can't imagine him not doing that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No, that sounds like that's a great thought there, to be quite honest. So we talk about Danielson, of course, the popularity that Danielson has in the realm of professional wrestling. Let's talk about another guy that's getting some real great popularity recently, and that's LA Knight. LA Knight is somebody who is coming into prominence so much just in this last year, really. Of course, a lot of you listeners know him from his time in NWA, of course, and also TNA as Eli Drake, and he burned it up there on the Indies for a while, and now he's on the main shows. He's on WWE, featured prominently on SmackDown now, after doing Max Dupree, and then they kind of went with the repackaging, and LA Knight kind of took off from there. So now there's rumors that he may or may not have signed a new 5-year deal with the company. We're starting to see him come into play a little bit more on Friday Night SmackDown. He's starting to pick up some key wins, and also having backstage interactions with people the likes of Paul Heyman, as we saw in this past Friday Night on SmackDown. So I guess the statement that I have for you is this: LA Knight will be a WWE World Champion within 2 years. That's true. That might be true. That's ridiculous.
That's true. It's going to be within a year. A year from now, he's going to have a world title.
Oh wow. There's
reasons
right
I think that. Number one, I don't think he's going to be in the picture with Roman Reigns per se.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be playing off Seth Rollins or somebody else. But most importantly, you have to remember that they're signing him to a 5-year contract, and LA Knight, who is by no means old in the world of professional wrestling, is getting in that upper range where somebody would be a multiple time champion at that point in their life. I think that they're going to put a lot, there's going to be a lot of push for him, because they need to maximize their ROI.
Yeah. Hype.
I think that is definitely a true statement. I think it, if nothing else, and this is not a knock or anything, but I think LA Knight would make a great transitional champion somewhere down the line, especially if they are going to push him because of his age and certain things like that. That would be the time to do it. I do agree with Pollo. It's definitely not going to happen against the Roman or anything like that. But I can see maybe. I don't want to. I think Finn eventually is going to come back to that world title, world heavyweight championship with Seth, and take that off of him. So maybe somewhere out of that mix. I think you're correct. So.
who knows what could happen. I mean, in my mindset is that it could be within the next 2 years, most definitely, but they also might want to keep it staying. I mean, for me, like I've said on the show before, the pop's been consistent. The people seem to care. It's just how sustainable is it? How sustainable is it? And if it is sustainable at that point, I definitely feel like that's somebody that you should push, give more opportunities. I think we're already seeing him in like Slim Jim commercials now. So they're pushing him out there and doing stuff with them. So like maybe they're testing the waters to see what he can be, in public relations outside of wrestling. And I think that's could be a test as far as how far we go with the LA Knight experiment if we put the title on him. But 2 years of time, especially on a 5-year contract, I feel like is more than enough time to test those waters and see if this guy actually is World Heavyweight Championship material.
Absolutely.
I think they've already determined that he's World Heavyweight Championship material, which is why they're offering him a 5-year contract.
That part.
True. Good point.
They
So
already had that. They've already taken it for a test run.
right, to see how far they can take it. I like LA Knight. I'm a big fan of what he's doing, and I hope him continued success. Somebody else who's had continued success, that is the Intercontinental Champion Gunther, who is now the longest reigning IC champion in the company's history. Things just keep happening for Gunther, and it seems like with him cutting the weight and taking the name change and just being overall solid in the ring with everything that he does, I can definitely see big things coming down the pipeline for Gunther. But my statement as far as he goes is this: Pollo, Gunther will win the 2024 Royal Rumble and go on to WrestleMania. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I'm going to say that that's ridiculous. I don't think that that's where they want to position him. I don't think that that's what's going to happen at all. I think that they're going to use that Royal Rumble as the launch pad to get somebody into a position that they need to have them in. I don't think it's going to be a repeat for Cody. I do think that it could be a great opportunity for someone like an LA Knight.
Yeah. I like once again, going back to LA Knight, I'm a fan of what he's doing. Of course, we've had him telling this story as far as him and the Miz. I think that's going to be something that we revisit. But of course, once again, like I've said on the show before, we are in those lull months of WWE where we had Payback, which is kind of a B pay-per-view, and then same thing going to be with Fastlane here in Indianapolis, and then we'll rev up a little bit as we go into Survivor Series in November. And we talk about Survivor Series. I always like to talk about War Games. War Games is always fun. Of course, that they kind of started that out and brought it to the main roster, and they brought that before then when they were doing it and test driving it on NXT. So I want to ask a little bit about NXT because I'm a huge fan of the NXT Black and Gold brand. I remember the merger when they merged with FCW, and before the network came, you could catch those early NXT episodes on Hulu. Way like years ago when I was able to see stars like, of course, the Wyatt family, and then Richie Steamboat, son of Ricky Steamboat, and Moxley when he was becoming Dean Ambrose, Tyler Black when he was becoming Seth Rollins, all Liaki, Roman Reigns, all these early stars as they were coming through and testing the waters. And now we've seen so much different things happen with NXT through the years. We had the TakeOver era where you just couldn't miss a TakeOver. It was all great. And we had the time when it was a game show and it wasn't that great. And we also had the time when it went to, multicolors, NXT 2.0. But now we're starting to see NXT rise into prominence. I'm hearing and seeing a lot of good things as far as what people think and their opinions on NXT once again. So my statement for you, Pollo, is this: NXT will regain the glory it had in the old Black and Gold days. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think it's true. I think they're already en route to it. I think that the credibility is coming back to the brand. I think that the crossovers that they're having, bringing people up to putting them into great positions. I mean, look, they're obviously trying to give that brand a lot of shine. They've got Dominic Mysterio down there. They've got Becky Lynch down there. it's becoming a viable option for them to send main roster stars down to compete with these talents to get them ready to bring them up to the main roster. I think that they are absolutely en route to regaining that prestige.
Yeah, yeah. Hype, what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. So NXT right now currently is like one of the most fully complete wrestling shows that is airing from top to bottom in my opinion, whether it's from storylines to in ring action. It's super crisp, and we get story after story within a digestible take. I think it's coming back to where it was. Now, uh I I do think there is a part of that's ridiculous in this though, because um in NXT's prominence, we had guys from Japan, we had guys from the indies that were top name stars in there and infusing um that niche level of this is black and gold NXT kind of style. I don't know if we're going to come back to that because of the way the performance center works, and although they are still bringing in main roster guys to keep things fresh and keep things interesting, we're not necessarily going to have that new up and coming, like this is the hot guy sort of, or hot girl or whatever sort of thing like we did in the past, if that makes sense.
I think from that mindset is because back then for NXT, it was like, okay, we're plucking these top indie guys, and we're pulling them in because of the hotness that they have from the indies and pulling them in. Well, pulling them in from the indies, there's a lot of give and take with that, man. Just from thinking with that. As far as that goes, it's like there's some bad habits that you could pick up from the indies that might translate over, that they might have to try to get them to unlearn. And a lot of these guys that went to NXT from that great, and once again, to me, those days of NXT were great, but so many of those guys did not transition over well into the main roster. I feel like that with the way the structure is now, with NXT, is that they're getting them set up to not fail when you go to the main roster. Set them up and put them and give them backstories with factions that are prominent on the main shows like the Judgment Day and whatnot. So then that way they have something to revisit later in their career. Also, I think that we're seeing more like refinement of characters. Like, yes, the pure wrestling of NXT from back then, from back in the takeover era, was it was beautiful. But like the stories that they were telling are stories that would transition to mainstream audience, and I feel like that they're being prepped now. They're being prepped to be ready for everything that's going to come with the main roster, character wise, storyline wise, mainstream fan wise. And, for that reason is why I think that it might not be the same level of glory and prominence that we see from that old NXT. It's going to be something parallel to that. It's going to be glory. It's going to be great, but for different reasons than the old NXT.
I understand that.
So that's my mindset on that. As far as these statements goes, I got one more statement before we let you get off here. Call this a really great episode. It's been a real good one. Now, of course, Pollo, we know that you were speaking about you might not be as prevalent on screen this upcoming season of NWA. But once again, like I said earlier, I'm a person that says when it comes to wrestling, you never say never. So of course we've seen a little, this back and forth, this rigmarole with you and the Thrillbilly Silas Mason, which brings me to this statement. Pollo Del Mar will realign themselves with the Thrillbilly Silas Mason. That's true. That might be true, or that's ridiculous.
I think that that's ridiculous. I think that ship has sailed. They, for a multitude of reasons. From a storyline perspective, it's kind of irrevocably broken. But more importantly, like, Silas is the future of the NWA. I really do believe that. And I think that the direction that they're going to send him is going to be completely opposite. I think that our paths might cross again in a different capacity, but I don't think we'll be realigning.
Understood.
Can't wait to
Understood.
see what comes though. Can't wait to see
I,
what
I'm
comes.
excited about it. I'm really excited as far as everything that's coming for you, all the roles that you play. Just because for me, from my mindset, it's like watching your motion is just like it's magic. Like you said, you was magic earlier. I'm like watching it
Believe
is
that.
magic. Yeah, and it's like it gives me hope, you know what I'm saying? But like not only that, it's like this, this human being, this person that I have, this relationship with, that I get to have opportunities to do this and work so closely with, is just making waves, doing it their own way, and it's just in a way that's so special that you can't look away from it. And like it's special. It's special. What you're doing is most definitely special. And even from my vantage point, for me, it's even being a small part of the journey. For me, it's beautiful, man. So I love it. I love everything that you're doing. I love you chasing your dreams. I love you being everything that you said you was gonna be, when you were a young cat. And thank you for all the stuff that you've done for me. I'm gotta sit up here and prattle off the things that you've done for me. Just know that I know and and I thank you for it. It's truly appreciated. You did good things for me that had me like, whoa, I can't believe this. So like truly appreciate you for all that you have done, and of course continued love and blessings and success in your career, in your life, everything. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the sensational manager of champions, Pollo Del Mar. Do you have anything that you would like to plug? Anything that's coming down the pipeline that you would like to plug? We always love to give our guests that opportunity, that respect to plug anything they want to plug.
Sure. I'm working really hard. My new thing for growing my social media. I'm working like crazy I want to have more followers on TikTok than the Pope Elijah Burke. So that I'm coming up on I'm 50% way. So follow me at Pollo Del Mar Fans on TikTok. And then Saturday, November 4th, I'm excited because I'm going to be producing my own first ever professional wrestling event. It's Pollo Del Mar's Pride of the Desert tournament's happening Saturday, November 4th, Palm Springs, California. We're going to be putting on a fantastic show. There's a lot of options within the LGBTQ plus community for pro wrestling specific events now, which I love. I would like to create a unique and special space to add to that. And I'm optimistic that the things going on in my brain are going to make this one stand out from other shows. So if you are in the Palm Springs, Southern California area, come on down to Oscars in downtown Palm Springs. Saturday night, we're going to have a great party.
Oh, that's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. Hype. You got any last thoughts here for Pollo Del Mar?
Uh, no. Honestly, I'm so inspired by Pollo and
Yes, me
everything
too.
that Pollo does and how much of a grinder and like just hustler that Pollo is.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited to work with Pollo in the future with upcoming episodes of Pope's Point of View. So make sure everybody checks those out. But
Most
yeah,
definitely.
I just want to thank you for your time. I know it was an early one for you this morning, and just
And we thank
appreciate
you for your time.
yeah, we just appreciate your time and losing a bit of sleep for us.
Well, I appreciate you pushing it back to 9 o'clock from 7 o'clock, because when he said 7, I was like, oh no, we're not doing that one.
Yeah. Don't blame me. We
So
don't blame me a bit.
I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to prepare myself to go on Busted Open Radio. But that's and I would do that every week if
that's
they asked.
Understood.
that's busted open though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
understandable.
yeah. Dude, I get up and help you prepare if you needed. Just let me know.
So, but thank you all. I appreciate you allowing me to come on and wanting to speak to me about anything relating to pro wrestling. Is something I love.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Guys, that was the NWA's manager of champions, the sensational Pollo Del Mar here on In Your House. Guys, check this out. We are on Twitch. We are on YouTube. You can check this out shortly after the YouTube and the Twitch on the podcast edition on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Guys, of course, I am Hollywood House. This is my co-host, the great Hypocrisy Jones. And of course, you guys know where to follow me at. That is at the Hollywood House on IG. That's Hollywood House on X and on Facebook. And of course, this great podcast at In Your House on all those social media platforms. And guys, that's HOWSC. And the W stands for work. So guys, thank you so much for coming and joining us. And also one final thank you to the sensational Pollo Del Mar for coming on. Guys, hop on this bandwagon. Get on or get gone. Because the household, we are still going mighty strong. You guys have a great day and a great rest of your week. Peace.
Love you. Bye.